The night begins, as so many first dates do, with the ordinary rituals of anticipation. On the afternoon of April 1st, 2024, in a modest apartment building on Milwaukee's east side, a 19-year-old college student named Sade Robinson tells a building employee that she is excited. She has plans that evening. Hence, she would be having dinner, drinks, and the small electric hope that comes before meeting someone new. Sade is a criminal justice student at Milwaukee Area Technical College, a young woman building toward a future in the very system that will, within days, be called upon to investigate her death. Then she sends a text message at 4:15 in the afternoon. On the other end is a man named Maxwell Anderson, 33 years old, a bartender who has worked at several establishments around the city. They arranged to meet that night at a restaurant where he once worked, a place called the Twisted Fisherman, sitting along the Milwaukee River. It is the kind of detail that seems insignificant in the moment, a former employee bringing a date to his old job. And yet, in hindsight, it becomes one of the first threads investigators will pull on, because familiarity, as it turns out, cuts in more than one direction. The city of Milwaukee in early April is caught between seasons, the ice on the river breaking apart, the evenings still carrying a rawness that makes people walk quickly between doorways. Surveillance cameras mounted above the entrance of the Twisted Fisherman capture the two of them arriving, sitting, ordering. To anyone reviewing the footage without context, it looks unremarkable. Two people getting to know one another. A meal. Conversation that, from a distance, appears easy, but somewhere in that footage, frame by frame, forensic analysts and detectives will later search for something else entirely. The earliest visible moment in a timeline that ends in unimaginable violence, and the last hours in which Sade Robinson is seen alive, whole, and unafraid. After dinner, the two travel in Robinson's car, a white 2020 Honda Civic, to a second location, a bar called Duke's on Water, closer to downtown. It is here, at 6:30 in the evening, that Robinson sends a Snapchat message to a friend, an ordinary, unremarkable act of a young woman staying in touch with the people who care about her. It is a small piece of digital evidence that will later carry enormous weight, because it establishes, with precision, that as of that moment, she is alive. She is communicating, and there is nothing in her tone that suggests danger. The two leave the bar shortly after 9 o'clock. What happens next is reconstructed not through witness testimony, but through something colder and more exacting. The language of surveillance footage, cell phone tower pings, and GPS data, the invisible trail that modern life leaves behind it, whether we intended to or not. At 9:24 p.m., a camera captures two figures arriving at a home on the 3100 block of South 39th Street, on Milwaukee's south side, the residence at the time of Maxwell Anderson. Robinson's phone location corroborates the video. She is there. And then, for the hours that follow, the trail of her voice, her texts, her calls, her digital presence, goes silent. It is a silence that will later become the subject of intense scrutiny, because in an era where nearly every young person is tethered to a phone, an unexplained gap of hours is rarely nothing. Investigators, piecing together the night long after the fact, would eventually describe photographs recovered from a phone, images that showed a young woman incapacitated, on a couch, her face turned away from the camera. These images, prosecutors would later say in court, did not depict two people finishing a pleasant evening together. They depicted something else, something that had already begun to cross a line from which there was no return. It is in the deep hours of the early morning, sometime between 11:25 p.m. and 12:45 a.m., that a camera positioned near the South 39th Street property records movement in the backyard. To a viewer with no other context, it might mean nothing at all. A person taking out trash, checking a car, stepping outside for air. But investigators, working backward from what they would later find, came to believe this narrow window captured something far darker: the disposal of a body wrapped and moved under cover of darkness, while the street around it remained still and unaware. It is a chilling thought that violence of this magnitude can occur within a residential neighborhood, behind an ordinary fence, without a single neighbor's light flicking on. By the early hours of April 2nd, Robinson's phone, still transmitting location data even in the owner's absence, begins a journey of its own. It travels first toward Pleasant Valley Park, along the Milwaukee River in the River West neighborhood, and then continues south, arriving at Warnimont Park in Cudahy at approximately 2:45 in the morning. Warnimont Park, a quiet green space along the Lake Michigan bluffs, ordinarily known for its golf course and its views of the water, becomes, according to the timeline laid out by prosecutors, the site where Anderson dismembered Robinson's body. It is a detail almost too disturbing to sit with. The idea that a public park, a place of joggers and dog walkers and Sunday afternoons, could conceal something so profoundly violent under the cover of a single night. From there, the movements continue. Robinson's car, the white Civic that had carried her and her date between restaurant and bar just hours earlier, becomes part of the story in its own right. The next day, April 2nd, the vehicle is discovered burned, set alight in what investigators would come to view not as an act of panic, but as a calculated attempt to erase evidence. Surveillance footage from the area would later show a man leaving the scene near where the burning car was found, footage that, when placed alongside everything else, tightened the circle of suspicion considerably. Fire, after all, destroys fingerprints and fibers, but it does not erase a timeline built from 100 small, disconnected sources. A text message here, a bus route there, a doorbell camera 2 streets over. That same day, April 2nd, Sade Robinson didn't show up for her shift at a pizzeria where she worked. Co-workers notice, friends notice, and somewhere in that ordinary human moment of concern, a missed shift, an unanswered text, a gut feeling that something is wrong, the machinery of a missing persons case begins to turn. It is worth pausing here in the telling to consider how many investigations like this one begin not with a body, but with an absence. A person who does not appear where they are expected to be. A silence where there should be noise. Friends grow concerned throughout the day, and eventually a report is filed. Milwaukee police begin what appears at first to be a routine missing persons inquiry, the kind that, more often than investigators would like, resolves itself within days. This one would not. On April 3rd, officers conduct a welfare check at Robinson's apartment and find no sign of her. And on that same day was the day the search for a missing 19-year-old formally begins. A discovery is made along the shoreline of Lake Michigan that will change the entire nature of the case. A severed human leg washes up, found by someone walking the beach, an image so jarring that it forces investigators to consider almost immediately that they are no longer searching for a missing person. They are searching for a crime scene that has been deliberately scattered across the landscape of an entire county. The discovery on the shoreline sets in motion a process that is, in many ways, the quiet backbone of modern criminal investigation, the slow, methodical work of forensic identification. A severed limb, recovered from open water, tells investigators almost nothing on its own. It does not carry a name. It does not carry a story. What it carries is DNA, and DNA, unlike memory or testimony, does not waver or change under pressure. Samples are sent for preliminary testing, and within a short span of time, the results return with a certainty that transforms the entire investigation. The remains belong to Sade Robinson. The missing persons case that began less than 24 hours earlier is now unmistakably a homicide investigation, and the machinery of the Milwaukee Police Department, along with the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office, begins operating on an entirely different scale. What follows in the days after is a search that spans not a single scene, but an entire region. Investigators, now working from the premise that a body has been deliberately separated and distributed across multiple locations, expand their efforts outward to parks, to waterways, to stretches of shoreline far beyond the initial discovery. It is a grim and exacting kind of work, one that asks searchers to comb through open land and tide-washed sand, not with the hope of finding something intact, but with the understanding that they are assembling a person, piece by piece, from a landscape that has been used as a place of concealment. In the weeks that follow, additional remains are recovered in locations scattered across Milwaukee County and beyond, including, remarkably, an arm found along a beach as far away as Waukegan, Illinois, a distance that underscores just how deliberately and how far an attempt had been made to put geography between the crime and its discovery. Even with all of this, one part of Sade Robinson is never recovered. Her head is never found, a fact that would later hang over the case not only as an unresolved forensic gap, but as an open wound for a family desperate for something resembling completeness.